gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody in between.
He's a South Texan poppy poet living that hashtag middle-class gay life. It's Chibi.
She's a little bit Selena, a little bit J-Lo, and a whole lot of Pisces. It's Rocky.
And this is Words and Shit,
the show where you get to know the person behind the poetry.
Brought to you by Write Art Out
and Gemini's Productions.
Hi, friend. How you doing?
Hi. Let's be real. This bitch is tired.
I'm so tired. I'm so fucking tired. You know, really? Yeah. Oh my gosh.
It's exhausting being in this world right now.
It really is.
In positions of organization and advocacy, or just anything that isn't.
It is hard just being right. I think it literally yesterday I was talking to someone and who's a counselor at my college, and I was like, yeah, so I'm the eldest daughter, and immediately their reaction was like, oof. And I was like, yes. I feel that way. I feel like there's so many labels, right, in being what it means to be an eldest daughter, to be a daughter of an immigrant, to be a woman, to be a queer person of color, right? And I think with all these identities, it is hard not to be political. Like, you're automatically political. Like, your identity is political.
People
right?
politicize you for you.
Yeah.
You know, depending on what kind of spaces you're in. And it is. It infuses into the way that you are, and you can't help it. Like, you know, just traveling through South Carolina looking like I do becomes a political act in and of itself, right? And also becomes an act wherein we have to work harder just to do the basic things that everyone else has to do, right?
Quoting Selena, we gotta be twice as hard. Twice American, twice Mexican.
But you're right. It is hard to separate the political from the personal when your very identities have been politicized.
I think it's not having it separated. I think it's just like, it is automatic, but and I'm fine with it being political, because in my mind, it's like, what else? For those who don't have those identities that make them political or automatically a political identity, it's just like how they're going on with this like privileged lives that they have no idea. And I'm grateful for that privilege, but I'm grateful for like these identities. Like I think I'm a hot queer, like, you know, Latina, who does like this advocacy work, or even in like off and, you know, and on during my work hours. But but at the same time, like you said, yes, there's more to me, right? I want to be an eldest daughter that is not always tired, right? Or someone just like, just get that. Like, oof, I feel sorry for you.
Yeah.
I am someone who loves to read a lot of like fantasy books now, or loves to do like, Legos, you know, like Legos has been my new thing, Animal Crossing, and just trying to decorate my place with like all Hello Kitty or Sailor Moon stuff. Like, I want to be a cute tween again.
Yeah.
And I have adult money for that now. And so there's so much more to me than those like different boxes that they're trying to put me in. Right.
Yeah, no, I so hear that. And we know about your indulgence in fantasy, you know, like for anyone that listened to the
sexy.
To the Ayanna Florence episode, we know about your sapphic obsession. But also, yes, I feel that so hard. And like, I actually just had this revelation last night. I'm not even going to lie, in that, like, I was tired. I am tired. I am organizing a rather large conference for LGBTQ tech professionals right now in New York City, and also working on an album, and also trying to write and produce music for myself, and also XYZ, right? To where, like, I went and played Spider-Man for a couple hours, and it was like, I should be doing work right now, but right now what my brain needs to do is things that don't require so much emotional effort.
Yes.
You know, because all of the other work that we're doing as queer people of color does kind of like not just require our like attention and our physical and mental labor, but also our emotional labor. And sometimes we need to disconnect from that because it's a lot. And oftentimes it infuses itself into everything that we do because we just can't help it. Like, we can't. The world is on fire. Okay.
The world is definitely on fire, and it's not fine.
A few things. And that actually makes me appreciate more the conversation that we had with our poet today, in wherein we do dive into his work as an organizer and how his identity infuses not just, you know, the work that he does, but just who he is, right? And the perspective in which he views the world, and how that is, you know, unable to be extradited. That's not the word. You know, it cannot be unfused.
We're really bad with words this episode too. You'll see that we're all trying to find words.
But yeah, they can't be separated. Okay, they cannot be separated. The two cannot be separated. And led to a really, really incredible, insightful, and inspiring conversation. So let's just dive into it, shall we?
Yeah.
Tariq Luthun is a Detroit-born, Dearborn-raised community organizer, data consultant, and Emmy Award-winning poet. The son of Palestinian Muslim immigrants from Gaza, he is a Kresge Arts in Detroit fellow that earned his MFA in poetry from the program for writers at Warren Wilson College. Luthun's work has earned him such honors as being named Best of the Net, in addition to fellowships through Kundiman, The Watering Hole, and the Kresge Foundation. His work has appeared in Vinyl Poetry, Lit Hub, Mizna, and Button Poetry, among others. He also serves as a board member for the Offing Literary Magazine. Luthun's first collection of poetry, How the Water Holds Me, was awarded editor's selection by Bull City Press and is available now. Y'all, this is our conversation with Tariq Luthun. Hey, Tariq, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Hi, we're so excited to have you. I'm excited to really get into your conversation, get to know about you. And that's what like the whole point of the podcast is, right? To get to know new poets so they can become our new favorite poet. Yay!
Behind the poetry.
Yes. All right. So how we always start this is we do a very light check-in.
Okay.
We always ask everyone. So I just wanted to know, how's your heart today? How's your heart?
I don't know. I think there's like the sexy answer, like the fun answer for like a podcast, and there's like the I should probably go to therapy answer. So luckily I'm in therapy, so there's that.
Good for you.
I mean, I'm fine in terms of like the macro versus the micro. Like I'm good personally. Like I can't complain about like my physical well-being, but I have a lot of family. It has a lot of family who are like moving around a lot of places. And so even before Gaza, I don't know what questions are going to be in the podcast, so I don't know what to say now or later. But like even before that, I was always like, you ever see that meme where it's like the split screen between a person who's like at a party enjoying themselves, and then the next split screen is like remembers all the doom around them. Like that's just me, like
yes.
all the time, even before the genocide started getting worse. So, so that's how I'm doing. But like, I'm good. I'm looking forward to having a conversation. Getting to know y'all better. So.
Amazing.
Yeah, no, and that's so real. I think the kind of like dystopian reality in which we're living in, like, let's make a podcast, and also remember what's happening in the world right now, right? And I think all of us have. I like to call them W-2 jobs, right? 2 jobs. Where the work that we do is like, it's important in some aspect, in some way. And then you're like, but there's much more important shit happening in the world too. So I feel that. And I think both the superficial answer and the I need a therapist answer are very valid realities that a lot of people are living right now.
Yeah. I feel like every time we're going, like, even when I go to work, I'm like, why are we working? The world is on fire. Literally, it makes no sense. Why are we pretending?
I remember seeing this like meme somewhere. It was like, God, the girls you put on this earth to like frolic in daisies and hang out by the water are forced to do labor. So
yes. I do. I have an assistant, and he's younger. He's like a Gen Zer, and like I literally come into work every day like crying. I'm like, I'm a baby. Like, I'm his supervisor. I'm like, I'm a baby. Like, how did I do this? Why am I your supervisor? I'm too young for this. My people were not meant to be locked up in fluorescent lights. We were supposed to be out in the sun and enjoying the land.
I love where this conversation already is, and we haven't really even gotten into it. So we're going to have plenty of time to dive deep into your work, and all of that jazz. But what we like to do is start with a game that we call speed dating, in which we're going to ask you a series of questions, only 4. We encourage you to answer as concisely or elaborately as you feel is necessary for your answer.
Oh God, I'm gonna get so canceled now because I'm like,
no.
What kind of questions could we be asked? I mean, well, no, I don't mean like a bad way, but like people are getting canceled for saying don't vote for Kamala. So I'm just kind of like,
yeah.
You know what? No one's getting canceled on this podcast.
No.
If anything, we're getting canceled.
Yes. No.
We all get canceled together. So
there you go. Yeah. And then for we're not canceled, everyone else is. Okay, so my first question. You wear a lot of hats. You do a number of different things. Artist, activist, data scientist, right? If you couldn't do the things that you currently do now, right? What would you be doing? Like if you just physically couldn't, like if you just couldn't, right? And had to do and could do anything else.
So first of all, I was like, what are you saying about my hair loss? With all the hats. But secondly, I was going to say, well, am I good at the things I would get to do instead? Because that is the big factor. Because like if I was good enough, I would want to be playing basketball professionally. But because but you can't be like, Tariq, you can't do the things that actually pay you. But now you are relegated to this life where you are forced to only live as like a professional basketball player, but you are so bad you don't make a single team. And so I'm good enough at poetry. I'm good enough at data science. I'm good enough at like organizing. I don't know if like for example, people ask like, do I like my job? I'm like, I'm good at my job. Do I love it? No, I like parts of it. No. And also my job's changed so many times. Like data science, the part of data science I work in is like a little less data sciencey, but it's still fun. And so basketball, like my jumper is so broken right now, just to be honest. I don't want people to think that I'm like this like amazing basketball player. I'm good at facilitating. I know I have a little bit of a handle. Like I'm missing every shot I took this morning. So if I was good, basketball. But if I wasn't, like if it's something I had to already be really good at and like could like just exist on it. I'm good. I do a lot of like random handiwork stuff. I actually had time blindness. That's why I'm late for this meeting. I was like doing something in my garage. But I like working with my hands. So whether it's like, installing things in my house, like I replaced a bathtub. I do a lot of things by myself, so that would be weird. a lot of things I want to do. I guess the only thing I could do successfully alone would be garden. Like, I like my plants. I like taking care of my plants. I still don't know if the word is gardener for plants that are just green plants that don't become vegetables.
Yes. That's a gardener.
Am I a botanist or am I like a garden? Because like, I'm not making tomatoes. I'm just taking care of my like philodendrons and my fig trees, you know?
You know what? You could probably even be a farmer, because farmers can be like herbs and just herbs.
But aren't farmers making a thing to be consumed in some fashion? Like
in this, you know, in this consumerism, like capitalist world, yes, but we're in your dream.
We're the aesthetic farmer, the aesthetic botanist.
Yeah.
I think the term would be horticulturalist.
Oh.
Yes. Horticultural. Flexing that poetry muscle.
I know.
She knows words and shit.
A little bit, just a little bit. But I'm like really curious. This is not my question, but if you were good at basketball, which team would you play in?
Okay, so.
And it could be a team from any era. I'm putting that out there.
Oh, wait. So we're talking about like
why
the team? We're talking about just like, I mean, like,
I just with the team.
I want to know like who you're like your teammates would be like. Yeah, if you.
Oh, okay.
Like if you were like, if you could just be like, yeah, I'm part of the 1990 Chicago Bulls, right, or something like that.
Well, I wouldn't be because Isaiah Thomas bad boys. Unfortunately, like I can't. But if I was good, maybe I would help stop Jordan. But then again, I don't know. The team I would have been playing with would have been. It's weird because like the way Isaiah Thomas got blackballed and blacklisted because of the Jordan stuff, I was like, oh, you just needed me to be a good communicator and be like, hey, Isaiah didn't know what he said. So like he was just supporting a teammate. Michael, don't be petty. Like, come on, this is some like weird solidarity stuff. Like, come on, we don't have to be like crabs in a barrel. Let's like work together. But you know, Republicans buy shoes. So I guess but yeah, I mean like Bad Boys Pistons always good. But the thing is like I have to now interrogate the politics of everybody I'd be playing with. And I'm like, do I want to play with certain people? Would they have like really vibed with me? There's also like a lot of like racial politics when it came to like what certain players meant to certain teams, especially like Larry Bird, Magic Johnson. Now we're seeing that with like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, where they're like doing this weird like black, white, like savior type shit. And so, yeah, I mean, that's y'all making these questions so hard. These like decision tree questions. But like, how have y'all answered these questions? Like, what would y'all have done? Because y'all already have these answers, I'm sure, locked and loaded.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, like, if I was good at basketball, listen, I'm a San Antonio girly.
If you weren't doing the job that you have to do,
literally eating grapes like nude on beach. That is the job. just looking pretty enough that someone's like, I will give you all the monies. You are set for the rest of your life. I don't want to work. I think I just want to be happy and joyful and be with the people I love, and just make sure that we're liberated and free and just enjoying our best life.
Yeah.
Nobody has to work, no labor. I think we're all over that. I think so.
There you go.
Yeah.
I would have been a musician. Unfortunately, I can sing, but I cannot play an instrument very well. And I love music a little too much for that not to have been what I should have done.
Yeah. Can you still do it?
I mean, I do still perform. I do still sing.
Yep.
He is a good singer.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, he's amazing. Amazing. Okay. So that wasn't my second question. That wasn't my question. It was literally like an add-on. So I want to go with my question. I'm so sorry.
This is like the two-part question. Like actually, you stand in line to ask a question to the speaker. And like mine is a two-part.
No.
I know Chippy doesn't like it when I do the poem. I'm like, I'm curious. I would want to know. I'm biased because I love my San Antonio Spurs. So to me, it would have been like.
I like the Spurs. I appreciate them. Greg is a great coach, but y'all robbed us of a championship. So.
Yeah.
Robert Horry, just one dude shows up one time. He plays like 10 good minutes, and one of those minutes was the minute that doomed us. We could have won that championship. So
I'm currently in a program that demands brutal honesty, and I just have to come clean and say I have absolutely no idea what either of you two are talking about.
Oh.
Yeah. I was about to say, I was like, are you following Chippy? All right. Okay. So my actual question for speed dating, like 11 minutes in, is what is like the song or maybe like the album that you think best describes your work?
Wow. I don't know anymore because like there's so many different kinds of music that I enjoy and so much. So like, and you know, sometimes I'm like, do I go with like a musician who I like really appreciate, or do I go with like a specific album? I don't know. I mean, I grew up like listening to Tupac, honestly. Like Tupac was one of my favorite musicians just like coming up, like especially when I was like the first person I listened to playing music like on like an MP3 player was Tupac. And I got so deep into the lore of Tupac, like
Amazing.
Followed like the Machiavelli timeline, like the arc.
Yes.
You know, for a long time I thought Tupac wasn't dead. I was like Googling, like doing all these conspiracy researches. Like, I was on these like random blogs where it's like, I don't remember what they were called, but like the background is like all black and the font is green, like neon green and like purple and like rainbow colored, and they're just like, Tupac's not really dead, here's why. And it's like a bad fuzzy photo of this, and then I was like, oh yeah, Tupac's numbers are 7. And so I literally remember being in Canada because I knew where I was on, I think it was July 7th 2007, because I was like, you know, Tupac's number was 7, and so I was like, this dude's coming back on July 7th, 2007, 777.
Yeah,
I remember it vividly because I was in the driveway of my aunt's house in Canada, and I was like, where's Tupac? I don't see him. I think he's dead. I think he's actually gone. So, but anyway, so I grew up on Tupac, and so like I feel like there's gotta be. I really like Thug's Mansion. That song is like a really beautiful song to me. And whatever, I don't know if that was on a specific album because all the music I consumed from Tupac was like always like the greatest releases or the collection albums. And so I don't know what the actual album is, but whatever that was released on, I'm very curious about like the arc of that. Cause back then I didn't listen to albums beginning to end. I just listened to just songs, whatever showed up on a playlist. So I'm something, let's say Tupac just like politics wise, nostalgia wise, also just like as a person, I appreciate like a lot of the messaging Tupac had. So yeah.
Solid answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a
Thug's
solid
Mansion,
answer.
and then whatever else Tupac does. But you know, I mean, also Tupac has some like pretty gritty language that I'm just kind of like, I don't know if that's gonna fly all the time. All this other stuff is great. So
amazing.
You know,
And I'm just go ahead.
for someone that was like, oh, I don't know, you came through with a pretty solid answer.
You did.
I don't remember the album names, you know?
No, that's fine.
Yeah, just the song or just even the artist. That's perfectly fine. All right.
All right, my last question. I asked this of everybody. May or may not be a softball question, depending on how you look at it. What's your favorite thing to eat? And this could be like a specific item or a dish, a whole meal. Just what's your favorite?
Okay, so I loved fried chicken for a really long time, but I'm trying to be more plant-based. And I really like cauliflower. Cauliflower is actually like a great food.
Yeah.
But I'm really good at making fish. And so it's like one of those things where it's like, if I wanted to impress my friends, I'm making fish in like a smoker. But because I'm becoming more plant-based, I am now, it's like, well, what do you give up? What do you have to be good at instead? Like if I have to give up the things that I'm good at cooking, I mean, fried chicken was a big one for a long time, but like in terms of like thinking about his like health, long-term longevity wise, cauliflower is probably like the best answer. Cause I feel like you can eat that and not get like scurvy the way you would get from like vitamin C intake on like an orange. And so maybe cauliflower if I'm going with veggies, but, I don't know. I feel like there's a food I'm missing. I love meftoul. Meftoul, actually, I think that would be considered plant-based as well. So meftoul is couscous. It's a Palestinian couscous. Typically it's made with chicken. And it has like this thing called yakhni, which is like the broth, which is like onions and spices and things like that. And so I love that food. That's one of my favorite foods, but it's also like not low carb. And I try to be low carb and like all these things, cause I'm trying to like get back in shape and like be playing fit, because like for me, like I'm not really worried about body image like that. I think about it more so in terms of functionality, and I've just been getting injured a lot lately, and I think it's just like getting to a lighter weight will be better on my joints. So fried chicken, in an ideal world where like consuming fried chicken is the nutrients. Cauliflower, fried cauliflower, actually I think it's called like Manchurian like cauliflower. It's like the specific spice. It's like in Indian restaurants, they have the chicken version of it and they have the cauliflower version of it. The cauliflower is fire. Also any cauliflower with like a gochujang sauce. Oh, Brussels sprouts are really good. I went to this restaurant recently that did like flaked Brussels sprouts and it was amazing. And so that's like the spectrum of like not healthy to healthier. Meftoul is like my like favorite dish as like a Palestinian. And then ice cream. I love ice cream.
But like what ice cream? What kind of ice cream?
Custard. Some good custard ice cream would be nice. But I did one time. So I was at the United Nations Climate Conference, which is a fucking like a complete scam. Last year to basically just like yell at them about genocide and do a bunch of disruptions. But when I was there was this place that was dispensing like acai ice cream. Like they like would scoop the acai in like an ice cream and put it in a cone. I was like, this feels like the healthiest consumption of this delicious thing. And also I think I read like acai is not very high in sugar, or like I get it's all natural, but yeah. So I made a meal.
Spectrum. That's the meal. It's fried chicken with a side of cauliflower and couscous with acai ice cream for dessert.
Yeah.
That's as someone who in general, I do not eat fruits and vegetables.
Pupusas and empanadas.
Oh my gosh, that's my people. I'm Salvadorian, so we just do like pupusas. Go for it.
There's so many things I keep remembering. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, but also I did remember a friend of mine told me this. Every culture has an empanada. And I was like, yeah, like we have spinach pies in Arab culture, empanadas. And I was like, I think gnocchi or whatever is like technically. I was like, oh my God. I wonder what cultures don't.
We do know.
Looks at a certain Zionist state. But anyways.
Amazing.
Sorry,
amazing.
I keep thinking of foods and I'm like, that's the food. That's the food.
You're fine. Historically, I have done these interviews before eating, and this has completely derailed me.
Have
this
you ever had a good udon noodle soup?
Yeah.
Oh.
I might have to put that on the side too. Give me like a small order of udon on the side. Yeah.
Okay, so this is now our last question for speed dating, and I think it will also like segue into like your work and everything. But for those who can't see, both Tibi and Tariq are wearing these like amazing shirts, right? So from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Yes, 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 yes. Say it louder. And I love it. So my last question is, what's your favorite thing about being Palestinian?
I mean, I don't know. In terms of like, there are things that I know for myself wouldn't be the case if I wasn't Palestinian. I don't know on a more like communal level. I think a lot of people like Palestinian culture has like, we have a lot of these mantras like, to exist is to resist. And so a lot of times like the easy answer or like the simple answer is like to be Palestinian is to be resilient. But I'm very skeptical of resilience. I mean, lots of communities are resilient, right? And just because, one community is a thing doesn't mean other communities aren't. Because I've watched resilience exist in many forms, and like, you know, growing up in and around Detroit, I was born in Detroit, you know, full disclosure, but grew up in Dearborn, and you know, I've like oscillated between different communities, being like who I am, and also like when I went to college, that like kickstarted a bunch of travel, and then, you know, I started doing like spoken word and like touring and things like that. And so like I've been to a lot of places. And if I added up, like, for example, like if I added up all the time I've been in New York, I've technically lived in New York for like a year or two. Even though like I've only been there for like weeks at a time, a couple weekends at a time. But like for the past 10 years, I'm just there a lot, unfortunately. Sorry. Not a big fan of New York,
okay.
But
it's okay. Not a lot of people are.
So in terms of being resilient, I think that's like the top level, like communal answer. But like for me personally, I think empathy. I think I've been able to, because I'm Palestinian, I have had this like, and also, I mean, I'm also Muslim, but I think I've had like this very unique ability. Cause I keep trying to think about this. Like I think about, you know, if I was to have kids, or if I was to like get back into like teaching kids, or like doing like, cause you know, I used to do like workshops and stuff when I was younger. And also I realized like I did a lot of stuff when I was younger that I shouldn't have been doing. Like, I'm like, not that I was like bad at it, but I was like you do this thing where you watch other young people do a thing they think they're supposed to do, and you're like, yeah, let's just all do it. And like we're all teaching workshops to people who are like 5 years younger than us, or like 2 years younger than us. Yeah. And I'm like, why are we doing this? Like we don't have like, we don't like, just because we saw somebody else do it doesn't mean we should. But luckily, you know, all the students that I taught were like cool with it, and like they had like wanted me to do these things. But I'm just kind of like, I knew my lane, but I wonder about like the artists who are just like, I taught kids once, I'm gonna keep doing it forever. And I was like, what's your praxis though? So I've just seen a lot of stuff. And so I say this because sometimes I feel like a horse teaching a dog how to like move. But that's a joke from like a John Mulaney thing. But like, it was right. It's like, why are you letting like just like a bigger dog, like a bigger four-legged animal take care of like the smaller four-legged animal? Like y'all are just all over the place. But I think that awareness, being Palestinian, being Gazawi, it has like, cause like I grew up watching Al Jazeera. I grew up like watching like a lot of the violence people are seeing right now for the first time ever in their lives on Instagram. I grew up watching that stuff on the news, on satellite news TV. And so like it is, and I brought up like why am I teaching kids? Why am I doing X, Y, and Z? Why do I do anything that I do? Because like everything I've done it with a level of awareness. And even like being somebody who grew up in Dearborn, you know, adjacent to Detroit, I was always trying to understand how to see certain struggles in others, and vice versa, have them see the struggles in myself and in the struggles in my community. And so I think being Palestinian afforded me an opportunity to really like connect with folks and like empathize with different ways of being that I don't think I would have otherwise. I remember a friend of mine, a Black writer, amazing homie. Actually, I don't think it matters to like share names. So I was talking to Phil B. Williams, if you all are familiar, and like Phil was just like, why are you like this? Like in a good way. Like how are you like? Because we having some deep conversations around like race and politics, and Phil was just like, how did you come to this? And I was like, I don't know. I think maybe just like being from Gaza and also having been born in the largest Arab city in the country next to the largest Black city in the country. And I wonder, had I not been born with this certain, you know, it goes nature versus nurture. Had I not been born with the certain set of circumstances I was born into, would I have had the privilege, I'm using air quotes for those who can't see, to exist the way that I do? Because I also like look at my brother, for example, who's 5 years younger than me. And so I was like more middle class growing up, but then I think we became more upper middle class as my brother was maturing through his teenage years. And so, he has existed in a different kind of politic than I have. Luckily, TikTok has been really good at radicalizing people.
Yes.
So my brother's like
He really is.
really like on everything, but like there were times where I was like, we were having debates on stuff that I was like, we should not be debating this. And I wonder, going outside of my family, because I'm really like impressed with how my family's grown and like become very political in a lot of ways. And not really because of me. I just got lucky. I have to do as much work at home as other people might have had to do. But like I can look down the street at some folks, maybe not down this specific street, but like down a couple like cities, and I'll see certain folks with like some really less than stellar politics, right? And I always interrogate, and this is why I say awareness. I always interrogate what could have made me that person, and what was it about my upbringing, my connections, my family, my peoples that prevented me from becoming that. And so I always try to be very empathetic about where people are in their journey, because I don't know, if it's a paycheck or if it's, a certain like health experience or whatever that affords somebody the opportunity to realize the version of themselves they were always meant to be or wanted to be, or would be best serving them and the people around them. So yeah, I think that's what I love about being Palestinian. We're resilient first and foremost, but and I think that resiliency affords us a lot. But I think for me, awareness and accountability and self-interrogation and the ability and having those have helped me connect with folks in a lot of ways. Because I'm also like on the spectrum, like I have ADHD, I zone out a lot. I have like a lot of like things that make me very aloof in a lot of scenarios. But like if I'm in an organizing space and I'm like doing like work, that's why I'm like, I don't know how to like see myself outside of a production mode, because I've been like, it's safe for me. But like I'm good at strategizing. I'm good at this stuff. I'm good at connecting with people, but I'm not great at connecting deeply with folks, because I'm an introvert. I get drained really fast. So I'm like, cool. I've learned about you. I know how to accommodate you, but then I fail to accommodate myself. So awareness, empathy, resilience. Yay. I think those. Sorry, I ramble. You shouldn't ask questions to a person with ADHD, because I'm just going to like start getting going.
No, we want that. That's the whole point of this podcast. Like, I'm
also like a facilitator, and so I'm so used to like being like, okay, now ask them a question.
No. We appreciate it, but this is all about you.
This is your podcast, and actually, that was your TED Talk, is what that happened.
Yes, yes. And also, I caught on like from a previous question that you caught yourself from cursing. You could definitely curse here if you're the whole podcast is called weird shit.
Unless it's a personal choice, then we
unless it's a personal choice.
I was just I was like, who might listen to this? Because I also have family, and like I'm
That's true.
I'm never my full self on like whether I want to be or not. So I'm just kind of like I wish I could be, but I don't know.
And I think you hit on so many amazing points in terms of like these qualities that you mentioned: awareness, resilience, empathy.
Accountability.
If more people could just tap into those parts of themselves, right, and really, lean into that, and also the discomfort that comes with having to be resilient, aware, and empathetic. This world would be a much better place. So it's a bit. All three of those are a bit of double-edged swords, but I think ultimately are for the benefit. We've already learned so much about you, and again, this is your podcast. That's what it's here for. But we would love to now hear some of your work. So if you could share a poem with us, that would be fantastic.
Yeah. I pulled the bookmark out of the book before opening the page, but I found it. So because of that's the thing. I go back and forth. There's things like I want to read, and then there's things I feel like I'm supposed to read, right? And I think that's like been like the duality of my life. I'm like, what do I want to do versus what I feel like I'm supposed to do? And I feel like a lot of times I do what I think I'm supposed to do, and then either there's a miscalculation, or somebody's not happy, or it's not perfect. And then I'm like, was I better off doing what I wanted to do and crashing and burning, or at least doing it my way? And And so, yeah, so I'm always debating that. But I'm going to read this poem, not really because I want to, but because I feel like I should, because we're in a genocide. And I think it'll set the stage for some stuff. But this poem is called We Already Know This. And actually, it's a great poem following the question y'all just asked. So I want to start off with these two lines. So it has like this like two lines that say, there is more to us than what was taken from us. Because, you know, in speaking of like this idea of Palestinians to exist is to resist, you know, I think all of our, I know in a lot of like, you know, artist statements, whether it's me or like my homies, like we're always saying things like, you know, we want to thrive. We don't want to just survive. Right. And I think when I hear exist to resist, yes, like it's yes and for me, where I'm like, yes, and I'm really tired of being reduced to that. And I think we should remember that like there is more to us than this idea that we exist solely as this kind of like walking tombstone for something that was taken, as opposed to our resistance being rooted in something deeper, and that our resistance in and of itself takes the shape of like the things that we still actually have, the things that we still possess. And I hope that when we think of these things, we also continue to think of ways to extrapolate that to other communities, because like, you know, like genocide is not new. Like genocide isn't new. I mean, I remember like the reports of the Tigray genocide and everything that was happening. I mean, it's still happening. But like, we can talk about this later. I just get very like disturbed by how people are using communities to like not show up for other communities. And it's like, we're not showing up for any of the communities. It's like when my dad actually, sorry for the tangent story, but I feel like it's helpful. My dad would do this thing when I was younger, where like, if I wasn't eating my food, he was like, there are children in Africa who are starving and they don't have food. And I was like, why are you not sending them food? Why are you telling me this? Why are you not doing, if they're starving, why are you just using them as a ploy to get me? And so similarly, I'm seeing a lot of stuff where like, you know, with the Gaza stuff, people will say like, you know, what about the Congo? I was like, yes, 100%. But are you also doing something for the Congo? Like, are you the one who's doing that? Because like, it feels like you're saying, I'm not doing shit for Palestine and I'm not doing shit for the Congo. I'm not doing shit for Sudan. I'm not doing shit for Tigray. Like, I don't care. And then it just becomes overwhelming. So I said this as a Palestinian, but I think it should apply to all of us, which is there is more to us than what's taken from us. So the poem is called We Already Know This. A place to call home, land of olive trees and their branches, Palestine, Palestine. There, I've said it. I want to be sure everyone knows where my parents hail from. Each of us needs a place to return to. Genocide, I would hope everyone knows, did not start and did not end at the Holocaust. I haven't forgotten that everyone needs a place on this planet, and I prefer to live where I can leave the doors unlocked, or live without the doors, or hell, I don't even care for walls, but I do care for the blues, water, the sadness that comes when it is not within sight. I don't know if there is a child anywhere on this earth that wasn't at least once held by their mother. Water, where my mother held me until I was given to land, oh firm land, how my father holds me. People keep calling for blood, to dress you in it. I don't think any of them know truly how much of it the body can take, how much of it the body can lose.
It's chippy. It's all chippy. And I love it because every time we do this and someone who hasn't heard the podcast, they're just like, oh, like, yeah, we want to hype you up.
It's the big time.
No, thank you so much for sharing. That was, it was incredible. And I think your preface to your poem, where it's like what you want to and like what you think you should do, right? I think a lot of communities of color feel like we have to be this monolithic, or we have to present ourselves in these certain ways, in a certain narrative. If not, we're not easily be consumed, right, or digested, which is again like a half of ourselves, really. And I think I wanted to talk. Go ahead. Oh, I think I wanted to talk about, like what incidences, like have there been, first of all, I'm like curious of like, if you wanted to, which poem did you want to read for us? Because you wanted to. And then like, what other, like, I guess other poems that you wanted to do or you wanted to do yourself, but you thought in other situations that you thought were like limited to.
I'm looking at it now. I don't know. I think that poem is fine. It's what it was supposed to do. And also like, I like, it's not like, it's one of those things like it's a rank order thing where I'm like, it's not like I didn't want to do this poem at all. I'm just like, maybe would I have read it if I had to, if I wanted to. I don't even know if I think the poem I'm going to read later is the poem I would have wanted to read, which is good. We have two. But
good.
I don't know. I think it depends on the day. Like, so I've been dealing with a lot of like mental health things lately. And I think I would have read a poem called I Felt Nothing, which is probably like the better one for how I feel. But even then, like, it's not really what I want to do. It's just like, it would be more aligned with how I feel. So one is like what I would have done on the political level, which I did. One is how I like would express how I feel. But I think there's got to be a poem somewhere. Ooh, I would have read a poem I had recently wrote, and I think the Rumpus put it out. It was like the last poem I had left. The only reason I remember because like they solicited it, and I was like, "This is the last poem I've ever written." If anybody ever asks me for a poem again, I'm gonna be like, "Sorry, I am out of poems. I have nothing." Because I've been in deep writer's block for like, I was in writer's block for like years before I wrote a poem that I thought had like broken the dam, and then I went to like a writing residency, which was a whole story in itself. And then I like started to like collect notes, and I was like really writing a lot of like notes, and just like I had this like notebook that was full of all these like half poems, but like I knew they were going to be good. And then I lost it in like a very like anticlimactic way. And it was a dumb decision because I do this stuff a lot. I'm like, ooh, this is such a like storybook thing. I should do this thing. And then I do it. And I was like, why did I do that? Why did I do that? I should have known better. Like, so I don't know if y'all are familiar with like pilgrimage, Muslim pilgrimage, Hajj. Google it, y'all, if you are listening and don't know. But basically, there's a version of it. So the main pilgrimage is like the holy thing that like erases your sins and all that stuff, but it's supposed to be like the Kickstarter to your like your best self, because you're ready to be your best self and start fresh as an adult or whatever. That was a very bad SparkNotes version of that. For people who don't Google, please Google. Or like, Ask Jeeves, because none of them are apartheid.
Ask Jeeves, what a throwback.
So
this poor man is still working.
I think he is. I think it's ask.com now. But yeah.
Hardest working man on the internet, truly.
I love Jeeves. Jeeves was AI before AI. But, in terms of so I was at what's called a Umrah, which is like the off season Hajj. And it still gets pretty like packed. And so I had put my little notebook in my bag, and I was like, cool, I'll do some like faith stuff, being somebody who's not very religious, but like who's like trying to get more in touch with certain elements of what's ethereal and higher powered. And then I was like, let me take my notes. Maybe in between like a prayer, I will like write a note and reflect on this experience. And then I decided to go up and touch the Kaaba, which is the black box. And that is where things get wild. It is like a mosh pit because everybody's trying to touch it. A lot of people who have like spent their whole life savings to be there are like, it's like it's a free for all, just trying to like touch that thing. And I got to it, and I touched with the part that I cared to. I didn't want to like, I didn't need to like, some people wanted to like kiss a stone. I was just cool with just touching and like just kind of like seeing how I felt anything, which is why I Felt Nothing is a great poem, because it has nothing to do with that experience, but like I feel nothing a lot. But that's a trauma thing. And so in terms of
I love it.
And I'm ready to go. I'm on my way out of like the religious mosh pit. And as I'm on my way out, I can't get out, and the bag is starting to rip away from me. It's like ripping because it was like a cheap airline bag.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get it. There's so many feet just there, and I couldn't get back to it. And I was like, no. I mean, luckily I knew it was my phone. Like I was in my hand at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was actually reading like a scripture thing, but I had lost all these poems. And so yeah. There is a poem, I'm sure, in there that I would have loved to have written and read, but the poem that started those off is called Field Notes, and that's on the Rumpus. I would have read. That's the one I would have read. I forgot I wrote that poem. So.
Okay, so for our listeners, please look up Field Notes.
Field Notes on the.
What an amazing story! But now, like, your words are just like there.
Somebody might steal my shit. Who knows?
Go or that story is a poem.
Oh yeah,
somehow.
Yeah. I also love how you describe a religious mosh pit. So I just feel like everyone's just like having a fun time, like eating. Yeah.
No, but I do feel that notion of like the poem I want to read versus the poem I'm supposed to read, but also. On the flip side of that, for those of us that write, that a lot of our work is kind of like in response to things that are happening, like the poems that there's this poem I wrote 15 years ago that I wish I could stop reading, right? That I really wish I didn't have to still read that poem, right? And this poet out of Austin, Glory B, once posted just random Facebook status update was like, I can't wait for the day my poems are irrelevant. And so I just throwing that out there and curious if you have similar feelings of like, yeah, I don't want to read these poems anymore. I want these poems to no longer be relevant to, because we don't live in these situations anymore. We're not dealing with these struggles anymore.
Yeah. I mean, so that's actually, I'm curious about what the context was for that. Like, was it like, I would hope we don't have to keep writing poems about police brutality or like, the need for liberation, et cetera, et cetera. Was it that kind of vibe with that post?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I said this a lot when I was younger. It feels weird to say when I was younger because I'm 33 now, and I'm just like,
still young.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like I know it's still young to a lot of folks, but I'm like, I feel like I've lived such a life. And like each year is a life, in some ways, but, cause I don't even think, 20-year-old me is so far away, from 25-year-old me, from 27-year-old me, from like 30-year-old me. And so I don't know. I think maybe I said this when I was like 20, when I was like a kid, when I was like doing poetry slam and stuff like that. I had written a poem and I was like, honestly, and also I was reckoning with poetry. So for me, I don't know if I actually I go back and forth. I want to say this the wrong way. This is what I'm saying, what might get me canceled, but I'm like, I don't know if I care about poetry. Like, I don't really know if I care that much. I care about how it makes people feel. I like, and this one goes back to what I was saying, like, I'm good at it. I'm good enough at it, I guess. Sometimes I worry that I'm not good enough at it because if I cared more, like, cause for example, like part of the reason I haven't written in so long is because I've been organizing. The other reason is like the pandemic happened, which cut into my ability to organize, which was like a big lifeblood for me. And that's not to say I'm a good organizer. I think people are like, oh, you organize. I was like, y'all, organizing is a lot of failure. Like half the shit I've spent hours upon hours upon hours upon hours for weeks, months, and years never turned into anything. But I have to believe it was a success because I made friends. We strengthened our resolve politically. We have even though we're inching towards something, we're inching towards a more like liberated peoples, even if the liberation is not yet here with us. Mentally, we are envisioning how that can manifest. And that wasn't the case at the beginning of the work, right? And that wasn't the case, maybe 20 years ago, 40 years ago, 100 years ago. There's always a new way to reimagine it. The thing I fear, though, now is that we are up against machinery that doesn't sleep, right? Like it was one thing when I was like, it's like, Black Panthers, all these organizations navigating against like a CIA that also was like dealing with the same kind of technology. Now you're like looking at like these institutions that have fortified themselves with like machine learning that will loop seconds upon seconds, iteration upon iteration forever while we sleep. And so I worry about how much inching matters when like we're getting lapped even in our sleep. But that is a daunting thing that makes it harder to do the work. And so I will not think about that or not worry about that too much, because it doesn't mean the work shouldn't be happening. And so I say that because when I was younger, what I was saying was like, I would trade poetry if it made the word better. Like, I don't care about this thing. Like if somebody said, Tariq, all you have to do is give up poetry forever and the world will be good, I would never write a fucking poem again. Like, that's like, for me, that's like how it is. So it's not even like a poem I would like to retire. I don't know if I would write anything if it wasn't for the things. Cause I also see my poetry, or at least I saw my poetry as journalism. I saw it as like a way, and I say this a lot, I offer texture to the reporting we were met with, where we see stories where it's like, 100 dead, blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay, well, actually, what is the story of what was actually removed from this world, right? It's not 100 dead. It is, the child being carried away, the husk of a child carried away by like the remains of a father, things like that. Like, this is the kind of stuff that I thought poetry was doing. So like, I don't know. I feel like poetry is just a way for me to like process feelings and like stories and realities. And I think if I was in a better world, I wouldn't have a need for poetry. I'd be eating grapes, right? I'd be eating grapes, chilling on the water, hanging out in a canoe. But then I feel like I forget that I feel like I've gotten good enough as a writer, maybe a little like, I don't want to say too good and sound cocky, because I don't mean like I'm out here like, laureate good. What I mean is like, I've become good enough where I think I can write stories. I mean, obviously I'm telling stories here on a podcast. I surprise myself by my ability to tell a story, because I'm always very silent. I'm very like quiet a lot. I don't really talk much except for when people tell me to talk. And so I forget I'm like, oh yeah, I have ideas. I'm good at this thing. But when I say like, I'm good at stories, I'm like, oh, I can create charge in a poem and it not have to include death or like aspirations for liberation. I can just write a poem and it can just be like a beautiful story about something. The question that becomes though, do people care about that story? Because I personally don't care about the story of a flower right now. I would love to, but I can't. And I know we've seen plenty of poets, plenty of people who are like, I wish I could just write about flowers. And a lot of Black poets, especially in a lot of traditions, have talked about, and they've equated this like, I want to be able to write about this, but I can't because of this. And so, I don't know. I'm rambling, but I don't know if I'd want to. I keep saying I'd give up poetry, but then I keep thinking about like storytelling and what it means to people, just like humanity. And I'm like, I think people were meant to tell stories. We were meant to consume them. I would like to be at the sweet spot of being able to write poems or stories about things that people, well, actually, I actually don't care about people liking my poems and stories, but I would hope it finds somebody.
Yeah.
And even if that person is just me, which is how I've approached the work so far, I'm like, you write for yourself, and then hopefully that work serves others as well. But like, you have to write for yourself first. And then just hope that if you exist, somebody like you must also exist, which is why I love poetry and I love writing. I think it closes the gap between people and like these perceived distances, and like, there's a worse word than distance. These perceived incongruency. I'm using kind words. There's a word that's really bad. I'm like there's these like things that keep people at odds. I'm blanking on the word right now, but yeah, I think storytelling is like actually the only way. And actually, one thing about organizing, because we were talking about organizing earlier, like 1 minute ago. I feel as though when I think about AI, when I think about tech, when I think about this like increasingly surveilled world, storytelling like community, like town hall discussions, like ciphers, like those sessions, those experiences, that like kind of like speakeasy vibe is, I think, where organizing has to be more naturally. But also it cannot be strictly strategy, because I've watched those things fall the fuck apart. We have to be more mindful about the stories we're telling, because I think stories help us build trust, and it helps us also weed out infiltrators, and it also helps us envision that world, right? Like, we can't be out here talking about what next action we need to do if we're not also thinking about, like, how does this action help us build that world? Because if you don't have that framework for that world, you can have a revolution that yields another monarchy or like tyranny. I mean, we see that with the Arab Spring. The Arab Spring, you had like this fever pitch around a lot of people who would come together at the right moment to like really make something happen. But in that void, because hegemony already has its players, they were able to slide right into that space. We saw with Sudan, for example, like, we thought there was a victory for the people, like there was going to be some negotiations, and then you see like this turn towards like an all out like war, and the people are suffering, you know. So it's I keep thinking, like, what's the formulaic equation for liberation and sustained liberation? But yeah, I think, is this still the same question around like what poem?
Yes. But it's great. It's great. We're like getting we're definitely getting like a whole.
We're getting it all. And
we're getting all.
And I love that you mentioned, you know, like kind of like your work as journalism. I like to say that like journalists report on the facts of the moment, poets report on the emotions of the moment, right? And that's why poetry kind of, you know, like is a form of journalism, right? Yeah. So and then also on the poet laureateship side of it, you know, the poet laureate is not the best poet. All right, it is just the ambassador to poetry, which requires a lot of organizing. Yeah. So don't sell yourself short. Yeah. Okay? So I just wanted to say that and put that out there. But with that being said, typically we take a second poem in the middle of our conversation, but we are nearing the end of our conversation, and I am okay with that because it has been a great conversation. Yes. Not that I'm okay that it's ending, but it has been a like really great and insightful hour with you, and then like learning more about you and a lot of what you do. But I would love to have another poem, and then we'll transition into kind of like our final closing session.
All right, sounds good. Also, thanks for having me, y'all. I don't know if I like talk again after the poem or not, but if
yes, you do.
Welcome back and talk.
Well, thank you. We thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So this poem is the poem I was like, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't read this one. Maybe I should read the one I said I wanted to read earlier, but I've been reading this poem a lot because I think it speaks to a lot of things. Also, I wanted to name a thing. Actually, no, I'll save it for another podcast somewhere else in the world. So, cause I'm rambling so much. So, this poem is called You Can't Call It Failure. And I had written this is probably like the second poem I wrote after the floodgates broke open. And then, I guess what I will say, the abridged version of what I was going to say was, I wrote a lot of these poems before October, and people might read these poems or listen to these poems and think, oh, he wrote these poems after October. I was like, no, like, and this maybe also, you know, answers a little bit like about being Palestinian, about being in these communities, being tied to like organizing. Nothing is new. We've seen this all before. There is like a maybe there's like, to some people who aren't watching, they're like, oh, like you have premonitions, like you're forecasting the future. And I was like, no, I'm just paying attention to the past and the cycles in which the past returns. And so people might read, that's why I read the genocide poem, because I was like, I wrote that poem before this genocide even broke out. You know, I mean, to be fair, and this is what I was trying to tell folks, like the Nakba has always been a genocide. We've been in genocide since 1948. Just because it's slow doesn't mean it's not a genocide. And so similarly, as I read this poem, it feels like it's the poem I wish I didn't have to write, actually. You know, let's come back to it. Maybe to answer the question, like it's the poem I wish I didn't have to write, but it is not a poem that's like 10 years old. This one is actually just 1 year old, but there are other poems that it's like, though, I mean, I look, maybe half my poems I wish are poems that didn't need to exist, but this one specifically, I don't think needs to exist or shouldn't have to exist, but it does. But there are some gems in it that I was like, this is, if I could take away all the doom parts of this, I would keep this, and that would be cute. We'll see. We'll see if our listeners at home can see what those parts are. So this poem is called "You Can't Call It Failure," and that first line leads into the first line of the poem. You can't call it failure if you learn from it. I have lost so much, the fire of my life leaving me caked in soot. I wanted nothing. After everything I reached for looked like a match. I must be honest. My life is colored by ruin. I want to speak to every moment past, but then, what time would I have for living? The greatest minds of my generation are driven by madness. We harness it as much as we are harnessed by it. I would love to say that each of us made it out alive. Yet few call what we have done living. What asylum is afforded those of us hunted by chaos. A girl once told me, we are made of magic. I had no choice but to believe her. She would raise her hand to stir the air, and I thought she was the only one who did this until it struck me that as a child, I used to do it too. Run my hand through the highway wind as my father drove us from errand to errand past the tall grass of Detroit. So many claim that bodies are hidden there, planted in the lurch, but I have never encountered a city that wasn't made to feed on the bodies below it. I grew up in the wake of this, only ever wanting to become one thing, useful. I gave care by making it impossible for others to care for me. Everyone I know is fighting something, so who am I to add to my loved one's suffering? Instead, I offered myself until this body stretched past its limits, new arms sprouting into the cut. What good is devotion that hollows us? I've lived long enough to witness my heroes become elders and our elders become ancestors. For so long, I thought our generation would be the last to carry the torch. I've started to wonder if I was right for the wrong reasons. Each day a new land goes up in flames, and I watch an ensemble of silhouettes flicker till dawn. Mamas and babas, aunties and uncles budget between cupping water from the shore and salvaging who they can from the rubble. Each year that passes, I am more equipped to learn. Failure is the only thing I have ever been successful at doing alone. The sky is hazy with the blood mist of bark burning. I've grown tired of this earth's slow conclusion, but this is where I stay. Inhale. Everything is dead or dying. Yet here we are. Join me where the smoke blossoms. It's weird to hear that after some of these poems, but
Yeah.
I know. It is. No, but that was.
I appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Beautifully painted too.
Well, I'm glad it makes you laugh. Like, you know, I feel like we can ask you so many other questions about some of the other things. I know we're literally can't for another podcast or another, you know, in another universe and timeline.
I heard that Katy Perry song this morning. Somehow it was like "In Another Life," and I was like, "No." When you said that, I was like, "No."
I'm so I have no idea what you're talking about.
In another, it's an old.
Katy Perry song. I don't know where I was. I think I was at I was at the gym and the cycling. I was playing basketball this morning, and the cycling class was playing "In Another Life." I could be your girl. Something.
Go up! Wow!
It brought it all back to me. I had blocked it out for 6 hours, and we were.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
I sure don't know what the fuck is this song.
But yeah, you know what? Speaking of like, you know, songs and just like getting things stuck in your head, you know, I kind of want to get into maybe the next chapter of your life, right? So we always end this, our podcast with this question. We're sorry in advance because it's always really hard. But what would be the title of the poem for the next chapter of your life?
Oh my God. I don't know. So I wonder if I should talk about this because I'm like, am I giving people my ideas? But I'm like, you know what? Let me copyright these ideas before, because I'm not gonna write this shit forever.
Yes. Just like the shirt. You can copyright.
Did we talk about this before the recording started?
No, we did not.
For those who don't know, this shirt says "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." But there's like the organization that like made the shirt has like slyly placed their logo under an olive tree and like branded this, and I was like, how are y'all branding Palestinian liberation? But okay, so that is what we're going back to. But so I've been writing, so like the series of poems I've been writing, and this is why I'm like, maybe I should gotta say some shit because, you know, Franny Choi had released that book that was like very much tied to like apocalypse and like this world. My book would be a little different, actually a lot different based on like the kinds of themes I'm tackling. But like before Franny's book came out, I was already like drafting this shit just so people know. Don't be like, you're still shit. And I was like, no. But I've been toying with like the phrase meet me at the end has continued to like kind of like rattle around in my brain. And then I thought of like, you know, Terrence Hayes and, you know, with like The Golden Shovel and all of these like poems that like have similar titles that kind of lead you through things. And I was thinking about like, you know, I was like, what would it mean to have like a series of poems that like start off like meet me at the end of X, of Y, of Z. But the whole book itself is like meet me at the end, because I've been thinking a lot about apocalypse. And so like whatever in the next, did you ask me what like the next chapter of my life? So I guess like in a lot of ways, like the thing I'm working on would also be the title of my next book, because I don't know how much longer we have in this world. I don't know how much longer like this way of existing is sustainable. A lot of my friends have been like, Palestinian friends specifically, but like we'll get together like when we're all from all over the country, but like, you know, when we get together for like specific like activations and things like that, we'll talk and we're like, how much longer do you think this has, you know? And some people are like 10 years, 20 years, you know. And so I think we're entering a very apocalyptic world. I mean, the apocalypses happen all the time, same way as genocides. Like, these things keep cycling. And the question is, who is the apocalypse for? What percentage of society will actually experience this apocalypse? And that's what I'm, like, trying to, like, navigate with my book. And I've been thinking about this for a long time. Like, I always wonder about, like, you know, when the apocalypse happens, it won't be all at once. You know, it will be in phases, and like I can imagine that, like, you know, in one part of the world, if we're also let's say it's like a religious apocalypse, you know, like a faith like ordained apocalypse where it's like, you know, people getting brought up by the light and blah blah blah. And I was like, I'm sure while that shit is happening, somebody's gonna be like in a gas station in Texas filling up gas and just like chilling and like buying a fucking Snickers while like this other side of the world like it's begun. And so I think about like what it means to like be met at different phases across this timeline we're on, this world we're in, who we end up being, who we end up like becoming, who we meet up with along the way, and like how we build something new. Because again, like, you know, even if an apocalypse happens, I wonder if it's the kind that will end this world and like we all just like go to wherever like higher plane exists, if there is one, or if it's like, no, like an apocalypse happened, we're all still stuck here and we now need to like figure out a new way to navigate and rebuild. So I'm thinking about that stuff a lot. And so I don't know how, maybe that's not the very immediate next chapter of my life, but is the thing my life is consumed by. The next chapter of my life immediately, maybe in this book that's happening, is trying to get some sleep. So I gotta take a break. I've been doing my full-time job. I've been organizing. I haven't been writing, and so like something related to slumber would have been the title of this chapter for at least the next few months. But I don't know. I think I've like watched a lot of things happen, and I'm just like, I don't know what's left. I don't know what's left in me. I don't know what's left in us, but I'm excited or maybe I'm not really excited, but like I use optimistic words to like ask. I use words optimistically, hoping to aspire to be it. And so like I'm excited to see like what we all are able to make out of this, because we have no choice but to win. So
for sure. I often go back to the Dandy Warhol song "Sleep" and just think like, can I just live in this song like on loop for a while? Like, just let me, please chill. But I think this is great. Like with any good poem, you just leave us wanting more. Right? And I think that's one of the things in terms of like the work that you do, that it doesn't necessarily leave us with a conclusion, because there isn't one yet, right? You know, we're still working, we're still aspiring, and we're still building towards something, or tearing down something else, you know, and putting something in its place. But I want to thank you for this amazing conversation and the work that you do. If people want to find you and your work, if you want to be found, where can people do that? I'm
on Instagram at Tariq Poems, my name. No dots, no underscores, poems. And then there's links to like websites and stuff like that. But I will say I'm not very present on the internet. I'm bad at that. I only do it because I feel like I have to. Otherwise, I'm just kind of like, because I mean, that maybe not laureate vibes. Like I remember I have some good friends. Like one of my good friends, Tarfia Fazul, is a great writer, and I'm just like, I want to be the kind of writer where I don't have social media, but people are still checking for me. You know, like that's like, you know, where it's like, I'm like, I want to be the kind of writer where it's like, you didn't stumble across a fucking meme post I made about like, you know, fucking the fall of empire. You just like actually found the poems because you knew to look for the poems. But that was an aspiration I had many years ago when I was younger. These days I'm just kind of like, whatever is meant to happen will find its way. And I hope that it finds the people it needs. And so I'm grateful for y'all for like, you know, I saw the email in the inbox and I was like, oh, cool. I wonder how they found me. I hope that Good recommendations from
good recommendations. Yes. We always ask for recommendations afterwards, and I think you came up a couple of times, so we're like, yes, cool. We want to follow there.
I'm grateful for y'all, grateful for the homies, and thank you for letting me ramble.
No, thank you. Again, this is your show. Like we're here.
I still feel like inadequate. I'm like, y'all, I didn't get to ask y'all the questions. I only got a couple answers out of y'all, but I get it. Invite us where you ask each other this stuff.
Yeah. All the time. We just chisme. We just like exchange gossip and like even more.
We totally did that to close out last season because we had like 3 hosts that we alternated, and we were like, it's time for us to interrogate each other.
Ooh, and I'm gonna go find that one.
Yeah. Invite us onto your podcast, and then you get that.
No, stop creating labor for me.
Yeah, no labor. Remember.
Correct. Eat some grapes.
Yeah.
God, the men that you put on this earth to protect us are making podcasts.
Well, we really appreciate you so much. Thank you. This has been a wonderful conversation. Even just to like get to know you and just like which basketball team you would go to. And we didn't even get to talk about like the amazing artwork behind you. But that's my cat. Yeah, it's your cat. Is that your cat?
Yeah. I put a kafia on her many years ago. That picture went like baby viral, but I'm cartoonized, didn't put it. But also, I forgot to answer the question for real. The question actually would have been, so when I was younger, I wanted to be a basketball player. I was like, if I get good enough, I can make the Palestinian national team for the Olympics. And so we don't have a team, obviously. I mean, maybe we do have a team. It just obviously hasn't made it to the Olympics. Mm-hmm. And I kept thinking to myself, I was like, okay, if I start now at this age of 13, I will be good enough to make the team. Because also I was wrongly assuming at the time I should cancel my 13-year-old self. I was thinking to myself, like, you know what? I grew up in America, the home of basketball. Canada technically is where Naismith's from, but you know, America popularized basketball. Turtle Island, actually. Fuck America. Now, anyways, and so I was like, remember going back to Palestine. I wrote about this somewhere in like a cover letter. I don't know if it's anywhere public, but I was like, I went back and I played basketball with like some kids in Gaza when I was visiting for a summer trip once when I was 14 or maybe 15. They were so good at basketball. They were so fucking good at basketball. It's almost as if like the amount of soccer they played made their footwork so good and their jump shot was nice and everything. I was just kind of like, oh, I have to be really good actually. Like, it's not one of those situations where it's like, you know, like these players in the U.S. who are like, they're not good enough to make the basketball team for the U.S. no matter what, but like they are the best player to come out of like their nationality's country. I thought that was going to happen, but like not even close. Like, but I would have loved to play for the Palestinian national team in the Olympics. That would have been my team. So
amazing.
Never say never.
Yes,
It can happen. I'm going to wish that for you. And rest.
yes.
That means we're a really bad team, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I am just, you know what, I think the most things that I really enjoyed about this conversation is Tariq saying like I would cancel my younger self, or like I go back to my younger self and like the different places that I would be in. And I really think about that. Even I know we were just talking about this Olympic team. I asked my mom like, what Olympic sport do you think I would be really good at? And she dead ass looked at me and was like, you would have been an Olympic swimmer. I just know it. I just like couldn't take you that early in the morning. And I'm like, you're so delulu. Do you think that would have made the Olympic swim team?
Yes, your tiny little body.
Right? No.
Oh no, but no, it really was an incredible conversation just to really gain, you know, for people that just, in case you're not aware of what's happening in the world, right? To gain insight and perspective, and also specifically about the work that Tariq does and how that work is approached. And I think there were so many moments that anyone listening to this show can learn from, right? And take with them. And I hope they go explore the work that's currently out there and then get inspired to organize. I honestly couldn't think of a better, we didn't plan this. We are recording this as, you know, like near the end of our season, and this is going to be the final episode of our season. And I couldn't think of a better way to end our season than with, you know, like this conversation, because it does leave us on this kind of like precipice of what comes next and what has to be done, you know, to come next. Yeah,
as Tariq has been like talking about, like, this is not sustainable. And I think it really isn't sustainable. And I think every episode that we've had has touched up on like liberation, about freedom, about like we cannot stay the same. If not, there's no future.
We've had so many great poets this season.
We really have.
Like, we were talking about like favorite moments, and I was like, I don't know, can we just replay all, like, can we replay episodes? Because entire episodes have been like favorite moments this season. So if you're just now listening to this, you should go back and check out not just this season, but a few others. But this has been a wildly diverse season. It has been filled with LGBTQ writers, women writers, Black, brown, Asian, non-binary, all, like, everyone. And my heart is so warm from doing this work and being a part of it. And I can't believe that was season 4.
That was season 4. What a great way to end. What a fucking great way to end.
I agree. I really agree. Right. We'll be taking a break and planning the next season. But until then, let's thank some people, tell them where they can find stuff, and get on out of here.
Yeah. Thank you so much to the listeners. We wouldn't be here. We wouldn't even have a season 4 without you. So thank you so much. I hope fully, if it wasn't this obvious, there's going to be multiple amazing artists this season. But if you found at least one, there's 3 other seasons that you can find even more favorite poets. But without you, we wouldn't be here. And obviously, as a appreciated appreciator of, is that even a word? I'm just so tired. Someone who appreciates poetry and words. I know all of the artists that have been on this platform appreciate you too.
I think you were looking for the word admirer.
Thank you.
Over 100 episodes, y'all. We tired. Go look them up. Shout out and thank you to Chris Conde, the queer artist that produced our theme music and recently had a spread in Rolling Stone or something, a write-up in Rolling Stone. Go check them out.
Yes. And thank you to Write Art Out and the City of San Antonio Department of Arts and Culture, whose support has helped produce this podcast.
If you don't already, follow us on the IG and the Twitter, even though we never post on Twitter. But follow us on the IG at Words and Shh. And if you want more information about other podcasts on the Gemini's Productions network, follow Gemini's Productions at GEMINEYESPRODUCTIONS.
Yes. Mickey Mouse. Donald Duck, Mickey Mouse. That's what it sounded like. You can also watch or listen past episodes on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. And again, just to, if you enjoyed Tariq, there are like 80 other poets that we definitely interviewed.
100.
Over 100. Sorry, my bad. Over 100.
Or close to 100. Shit, I don't know. In any case, don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, review. Again, if you enjoyed one episode, you'd probably enjoy a few of them. And that means you probably have friends that would enjoy them. And it helps us get the word out. So, yeah. Until next season, y'all, stay safe out there.
Stay safe and free Palestine.